Hello and welcome to the i3 lecture series hosted by the Masters in Digital Photography here at the School of Visual Arts. I'm Julie Graham. Our guest tonight is photographer, DP, content creator and SVA faculty member, Samantha Isom. Starting out as a photo assistant and digital tech to some of the top image makers in the business, alongside making her own work, Samantha now incorporates motion and video to her image making, creating portraits, travel and lifestyle with clients including NBC Universal, Essence, Wall Street Journal, BPM and Philly Style. Shooting worldwide, she has also created the online journal and travel show brownpassport.com to represent brown Westerners traveling the globe. She is trained in deep diving and shooting underwater. She's climbed mountains and been sailing. She's super brave. Samantha has won multiple awards and honors from Communication Arts, the International Photography Awards, American Photographic Artists, and more. I recommend a visit to her website, which is thoroughly refreshing, and through which she demonstrates her tagline, "I make things gorgeous." A big hand, please, for Samantha.
Thank you. I'm not that adventurous. I don't jump out of planes. I do dive, though, and I have been on top of mountains, climb Machu Picchu and such. Thank you for coming, everybody. Nice to see you. Some I know, some I don't. And she's done a great job, thank you, of introducing me. And I'm on the national board of the ASMP as well, for those who may or may not know what that is. They do a lot of advocacy for us as photographers, copyright and so forth. I think a theme kind of for this, and there's a lot to go over, but I'm going to try to be concise, is things can go in different directions. You mentioned about being a dive master and such. I didn't know how to swim. So, I knew enough to not drown in a swimming pool, thankfully. I had lessons for that, but not open water swimming. I went on boats, so I was kind of afraid of boats. I've been now on a sailboat in storms, which is in Brown Passport, and I have some pictures of some of the sailing stuff from that to share. But the underwater thing, let me move this to the next slide here. I'll just show a little bit of the work kind of as I'm talking. And I took beginner swim lessons in 2015. 3 months later, started diving, and obviously if you're going to be underwater, how are you not going to shoot if you're a photographer and you do now motion, right? Which to me, it's all image making and storytelling. You might do it somewhat differently, but it's all really the same thing. So now I shoot underwater, and this is some of the sailing stuff that I wanted to show, since you mentioned about being on boats, which I was afraid. Now I do still wear, actually I've learned, wear a safety, what do you call it, like a life jacket thing when you go on boats. Highly recommended, because in the storm I did not have one on and I thought I was going overboard. So this is a story from the Jackson Park Yacht Club in Chicago, the south side of Chicago. So when, you don't have to answer this, but if you think about a sailor, like I'm not talking about in the military, but imagine what a sailor looks like. Don't even tell me what you think that looks like. I already know it looks like Chad, pretty much. I'm just saying, so generally, obviously if you thought of that, kudos, or if you thought of someone in Southeast Asia or someone, great. But generally, that's not how we were trained, at least in the West for the most part, through advertising and all the imagery that we've seen that's changing now, or has in the last 5 years. It might be changing back in the other direction where we are now. But so I'd like to highlight that there's this saying, we out here or we outside, we're representing, and not just those of the African diaspora. Brown Passport shows brown globally and just other underrepresented groups, not only POC. So, but this, I'll show more later in the trailer later on Brown Passport, but this is just a couple of things just to introduce before I get into some of the other things I'll talk about, into how I got started. This is in Qatar, so that's also from Brown Passport, as traveling around, take the long way around. I'm a huge Doctor Who fan, and he'll say, yeah, take the long route, take the long way around, take the long layover. So 10 to 20 hour layovers in Qatar got me camel rides and got me a photo like this and several others, and even a brown passport story that hasn't been released yet. So I started this by saying the theme is this, not just your life, but your career can, especially if it's creative, take different paths. I would, if you don't mind my getting on a soapbox for a second, I would say follow your path, don't fight it. I recently worked last week with someone, as you mentioned, I'm a DP, so I was doing video with another photographer who does a lot of hotel stuff like Hyatt and things like that, Hilton. And last week we were shooting for the Hyatt, and he's great, but I could tell where he's like, a lot of folks that are in the business will, and then I have to as well, will shoot things that it's not necessarily our path or our self-expression to keep the lights on, keep shooting, keep going. That's coming up a little later too. I'll show you some of that work as well. But don't forget to shoot what you're meant to do. Just follow your path. If you're being called to do something, do that, whether it's for a living or not. For me, it kind of has to be. It's like, my friend said I would live in a cardboard box before I wouldn't create my art, you know. But not everyone has that strong of a calling, but whatever your calling is, I would say shoot that, because it's needed somewhere in the world. Whatever you have to create, somebody, you have to do that for a reason. So don't ever stop doing that, I would say. This is obviously part of the underwater stuff, or in water. This is one of the communication arts awards that I've gotten. I think I've gotten 2 or 3, I don't remember. But that was shot in Indonesia just after doing my dive master, actually. So yeah, 3 years after learning how to swim, I shot that in the middle of the ocean, which is a little, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying I don't get scared. I still do. I'm not gonna lie, you know. But I don't jump out of planes, like I said. I do draw a line somewhere. So this is another underwater. That's only like about, let me see, 10 meters, about 30 feet down. So not that deep on this one. But the challenge, actually, this is, I might as well get into this, a challenge on shooting stuff underwater. If you could probably already see, I'm only about 30 feet down, but it's somewhat monochromatic. I kind of added in the colors a bit. I mean, that could be a whole class just on underwater. But you lose your reds and oranges. You lose everything kind of in your sunlight tones first, and then all you have left is this monochromatic blue-green the deeper you go, right? So thankfully, there in Indonesia, it's nice and clear water, unlike here in New York City. And have her looking up a bit so that I can get as much light on her as possible. I think I have a torch on her too, a little bit. I mean, an underwater light. But it's somewhat monochromatic there. But yeah. So moving on. This is what I do now. Like a lot of this, the underwater stuff, commercial work, video work. However, how did that get started? So this is what I mean by it, the theme is changing directions. I came here because I thought I was going to shoot for Rolling Stone. I was a musician and a photographer, and I thought, I'm going to be like Mark Zeliger, even though I never saw a brown female do that. It's all these guys that do nothing like me, but I'm coming here to do that. Things changed, and I didn't do that so much, but I took the long way around, just like the layover in Qatar, basically. One thing I wanted to share was I had an opportunity then that I didn't take, and I want to, if you don't mind me sharing, advice a little bit. If you have an opportunity, even if you're scared to take it, maybe you should try it. You could always leave later. I called Rolling Stone when I was just graduating high school. They answered the phone. This is back in the days. We're very limited internet. It's not like now. So it's almost impossible to get anyone now in an email, let alone a phone call. But I called them and I said, I want to shoot for you guys. I want to work for you guys. And I was 17, and they said, oh yes, you could intern for us. Why don't you come in? I didn't know what an internship was. It's different times back then, and I came from an area that you were going to be a school teacher, maybe you'll go be a lawyer, you can join the army, but this was not our world. So you guys are very fortunate to be here, no matter what age, and to have certain things, certain information available to you. I did not have that then. And I got scared and said, how could I afford to live in New York? How could I work for free? Rather than figuring out the how, I should have just gone. But that's the only mistake I would say that I made, really, all those years. But you know, I could have done that, and you can too. So if you ever have an opportunity like that, don't let something hold you back. fast forward to what I really wanted to come here and do was portraits. Like I said, musicians. Besides connecting with people, which I think might be the thing I like most about photographing people, is to show a little bit about who they are, even if it's just a tiny thing that maybe no one else even recognizes except the people who know something about those that are in the photo. This was shot in Oakland, California, and these two were painters and artists, mostly welders though, and they worked inside of there. They had that whole old airplane hangar in there, so that's why I photographed them there. This next one is a DJ. He DJs stuff, corporate stuff like for Bloomberg, but he also is a radio DJ, quite eclectic, so I wanted to show him in his room with all of his things. You know, just any little thing that you could have to show something about a person. This one, it's a portrait of, he's a musical artist and a diver actually. So in one of these two, he's got a dive watch on. It's so subtle, but anybody that's a diver would know what that is. So it's just, if you could have like anything small to kind of give away a little something about that person and the hat he's wearing, it shows he's somewhat creative. Just a little bit about a person, I feel like goes a long way. As I mentioned, I still hadn't found my footing in shooting that for a career yet at the point of being in college. Getting out of college, then I went to, I still was shooting a lot of that commercial work. And then actually, I'm not going to go into that. Well, no, I will go into that. This is kind of a kismet thing. Notice when things are going in a certain direction too. My car broke down. And I just thought I was at the bottom. I was down and out. I still hadn't moved to New York yet. I was still in the Philadelphia area. Like, what am I doing? And I started talking to the bus driver. And his older brother was a wedding photographer, a really good one. He undersold himself, very sad. And he's no longer with us, Paul Hendry. But he taught me how to shoot portraits like nobody else did. I mean, and he's not well known. He's just in a small town, or was, in South Jersey, a town no one ever heard of unless you're from the Philadelphia area. But sometimes you meet these one or two people in your life and they can change everything. And Paul was one of those guys. I mean, this guy was just like, he really taught me how to handle people, how to direct, which now being, well, DPs don't really direct as much, but as a photographer and you shoot video, you do direct. That helps me, I won't say how many years later, but a lot of years later to this day. And I actually took that with me in, like I said, in the commercial realm. After, or actually it was while working with Paul at his wedding company and a couple of other ones at that time, I finally started commercial assisting. So I went into a, show the next one because that's me assisting. I went into Abbey camera, it's not even open anymore, in Philadelphia, and opened the book, say how to be a photographer's assistant. Anybody that's older might know this book. I mean, maybe it's online now, or maybe it's not even out, but it was like step by step and what your job is, and even some of the rates, like what to ask for. As I cracked the book open, a commercial photographer came over and he's like, "Are you a photo assistant?" Yeah. I didn't make that Rolling Stone mistake again. I was like, I'm a photo assistant, yes. So he took me under his wing. Well, not just under his wing, I mean, it was a job, so it was great. We each shot annual reports and a lot of stuff in the Philadelphia area. At that time, it was mostly like some pharma stuff, but not really the big commercial jobs that I thought I was gonna be on. So the time came when I said, I'm gonna move to Chicago and make all my mistakes there before I go to New York. Right. Chicago was a very product-oriented market and not people-oriented, but learned a lot there, became a digital tech before digital tech was a job in New York, because at that time it was not single shot back. So you would capture, like, it would go click red, click green, click blue. So you could shoot products or architecture, but you couldn't photograph people like that. So short to follow, of course, they came out with single shot backs. And when that happened, and 9/11 happened, and I didn't get to move to New York yet. So obvious reasons. I was getting ready. It was like showing my book to Vibe magazine, Time magazine. I got meetings with Sony Music, Atlantic Records, Capitol Records. Being a no-name and not having shot for editorials, they liked my work, but I didn't get hired, but I got meetings. It's just that 9/11 happened, all that changed, right? So, and then Napster was out and the music industry changed and all that too. So pivot, 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 the theme of this talk, pivot, pivot. So went to Miami instead of New York, which a lot of New York photographers, mostly fashion, were going down there. So I got hired as a first assistant a lot. This shot is actually in St. Thomas, not in Miami, but it looked like that a lot. Digital tech did start to become a job. So I was doing lighting for photographers. I was loading film in their cameras, but then I started teching. So this got me traveling around the world a bit. That is, I don't know how many years ago that is, but that's on a digital shoot, and that's just, the photo assistants are most photographed people in the commercial world ever. Anybody that's assisted will know that, yes. Okay, laughing because it's true. You're testing the light. There's a light meter I'm holding like by my knees there actually. So, which a lot of people don't even use anymore. But yeah, there's a ton of that stuff. And that helped a lot for, again, learning the commercial world, how to deal with clients, working with ad agencies. So I was doing a lot of fashion, as I mentioned, in Miami, which got me to New York because a lot of those photographers are here. So at least I had a job when I finally moved to New York. A couple of years after 9/11. But then assisting, this is another thing I might advise. I didn't want to shoot fashion, but I was getting paid quite a bit to be a digital tech and doing lighting for fashion photographers. If you want to go the assisting route, try to assist photographers whose work you either want to emulate or who at least they shoot the genre that you want to shoot in. Because not wanting to shoot fashion, I got stuck in that for a while. It's too easy to do, like maybe too long. Just, it's great, but at the same time, no connections were made to shoot commercial portraits. It was, oh, you're a fashion shooter? No, I'm not a fashion shooter. That is not helping. So I would recommend assisting people if you can. I mean, assist anyone, of course, but if you can assist someone or people that are in your genre, that can help more. One of the things that was kind of sad, but actually a great launch for me was the stock market crash. Like, yeah, we're laughing because we know why I say it was great in a way is because I was assisting and teching all these fashion shooters. I was shooting my own stuff, but I wasn't, can I say, I wasn't really shooting it like, I wasn't doing that much personal projects. I wasn't doing as much as I could have been doing. I kind of got comfortable in assisting other people. And when the stock market crashed, it got back to my own, I was like, oh my God, I have to get back to my own commercial work or this is going to be an issue. So while I was assisting, I would pick up some corporate work. I had right around the stock market crash is when I started to get this actually, because I had no work. I took a job as a bartender at the Sheraton Hotel. And they were not the most lucrative bar, but it was one that would allow freedom in time so I could still work on photography shoots. So that was great because then I started picking up this work. It was amazing when I stopped assisting these other people, like not the wrong people, but just in the wrong side of the industry. I started getting the work I wanted to get. This was I had a contract with Columbia University for a while. So that's Samuel Peabody in his home, and then I don't remember who she is, but there were so many incredible people I got to photograph for this alumni magazine at Trenton State. It was incredible. And I'm not Trenton, Teachers College, sorry about that. And still at the same time shooting events like this, the fun kind, and shooting some corporate events. This actually was a corporate event, they were the hired hands. And getting back to personal work. All right. So the next slide is going to be some of the older personal work. It's very street. It's actually from when I lived in Chicago, but it's very street. It's kind of not as polished as what I do, and it's all on film as well. But this is a really important thing that I want to share. I think personal work is the work. As I mentioned earlier, do what your calling is. Even if you have to do something else for a while to get by or get ahead in a way. But definitely don't forget to do what you're here and to what your personal calling is. So this, I mentioned earlier, I didn't look like Mark Zeliger. I didn't look like some of these other guys that were shooting there, and one gal, Annie, it didn't look like her either, that were doing the work that I wanted to do. And I didn't know at the time, but diversity was like a theme that I felt called to show. And so in this, it's very street. Self-expression was this, I was gonna do a book, I didn't, I do have one now, but this was where I saw like those that were maybe marginalized. Like this is the Dyke March in San Francisco. That's way back in the day, Mardi Gras. It looks very different now, Mardi Gras, but it was like a whole block of just underground artists. You kind of can see that there now, but it's so commercial now. It's quite different. This is in the mid 90s that did this. And I like to show like some things that kind of break a stereotype. Like these guys, you know, I went to Bike Week in Daytona and photographed that. And I just thought, oh, our preconceived notion, what is a sailor? Chad. Our preconceived notion of what bikers might be would be maybe like Hell's Angels type of guys or like mean people. These are Christians. So I wanted to show like a bit of a difference there. And there's no time for me to go to all of it, but black bikers or Asian bikers or anybody different. That was kind of, even though this it got shown a little bit, but this project was, I mean, it was the first one I ever did. That's a Mardi Gras Indian down there in New Orleans. It led to the work that I'm doing now. So during that the stock market crash was really a major like turning point in the career. So I'm gonna pull this up. I'm just pull these because there were so many to get into this slideshow here. So because of the demographic that I am, I'm mixed race, and I kept getting asked, so what are you anyway, right? As I mentioned, diversity being now really a strong point in my personal work. The first images that I was showing was just freedom of self-expression, and then sometimes juxtaposing people, like I said, our preconceived notions of what a biker is, or showing marginalized folks like the Dyke March. This is, I interviewed, I don't even know how many, I only have 29 here, but several mixed race folks, and I took excerpts of their answers and used the same font and wrote around their faces. So, and then made this book called So What Are You Anyway? The title came from my brother, who's obviously mixed race too, where people asked him time and time again, what are you? So most of these folks are half black and half something, but not all. There's a couple that are, well, he's half black, half Spanish, half black, but there's somebody that's half Scottish and half Chinese. And he was saying, like, when he would go to Chinese New Year, his cousins, his full-blood Chinese cousins, you know, he still felt a little bit on the outside because they just didn't see him entirely as one of them. And I just think that deserves representation, and acknowledgement is a key to healing. And if we never discuss this, we're never going to move forward, right? So I think that the world wasn't really ready for this. They might be now. When I came out with this, like, it was over 10 years ago, because I had a book signing at a Chelsea gallery at the time, and then still I had trouble getting a publisher. You know, yeah, they're like, if you get somebody famous in there, like I said, like Alicia Keys, they're like, yeah, okay, great. So you're a publishing company. The only one I talked to, I was like, how about we use your leverage to get Alicia Keys though, or to get somebody. They would not do that. So, and a lot of people were like, oh, why are you talking, why is everything about race? And why is it about diversity? Of course, that changed a few years later, right? So I'm gonna be representing this again. But it's interesting, and I think there's a copy, if there's not one there, if anybody wants to look at it after, I have here, so you could read some of the things. It may or may not be on my website. I'm not sure if I have that. Oh, sorry, I'm tapped the mic. But these folks are not in their 80s, okay? And I've asked my nephews, who are 21 and 23, something like that now, and they said this still resonates with them now, which is interesting. So I feel like this is a calling from my personal work. It's just, okay, he's the guy that talked about being being at the Chinese New Year. Yeah, Mitchell Yoshida. Or is he, maybe, yeah. So then, let's scroll through these. He went to Ghana for his father's side, and he told me, I don't know if he wrote it in there. Oh yeah, he did. They called him a brownie, which means like cracker almost, like a white, kind of a gringo kind of thing, because he's not as black as they are. So these things, it's not about showcasing negativity, but it is about showcasing someone's experience as that's valid. And that's how people walk through life. And for whatever that is, I think it's worth acknowledging. Again, as acknowledgement is a key to healing. Maybe we wouldn't have so much divisiveness now. Now I'm getting political a little bit. But we wouldn't have so much divisiveness if people were just to sit down and listen to each other. So that's like what I like to do in a lot of my work, in the personal work at least. And I think that this is going somewhere now this is leading me to get more commercial work, actually, which is interesting. It wasn't really the point of doing it. But, okay, yeah, just scrolling through these a bit. But like I said, you could, oh yeah, she's half Italian and half Chinese, or half Japanese, I think. But anyway, you could read hers later too. Not too long after the stock market crash, well, a couple of years, I guess, I bring this into this. I had an opportunity to go to Hawaii for off and on to live, would stay with somebody for free. So I was really fed up with all the trouble, not just the crash, but the trouble that I was having with getting the type of work that I wanted. I got work, obviously, because I still made it. I still have the same apartment, so it's still paid for. But it was just, I just said, oh, I'm hitting a wall here. What am I doing? And so I just said yes to go to Hawaii and rent my space out here in New York and stay there like a month at a time. I did come back here and shoot some jobs because I thought, how am I going to live if I'm not working? Interestingly enough, it was Maui where there's no city, and the type of work was completely different than here, and it was all video. So yes, I knew how to shoot video a little bit. I worked at a TV station in high school. I helped my friends on some of their projects. I was an assistant, at the bottom camera assistant PA on a feature film like for a couple days at one point, helping my friends do projects. Didn't take it seriously. I do now. Pivot. Once again, things go in different directions. So the type of work that I was getting in Hawaii was all video work for local businesses, some bigger than others. And that helped tremendously because when I came back to New York, I had a body of work to show and people started taking me seriously in the video world. And they definitely do now. And that's where I learned how to dive, hence this thing shot on the left. This was for a short film. Somebody's behind the scenes stuff. This is for a short film where somebody hired me to be the underwater DP. That film's not out yet, or I'd show you some of that stuff. I do have an underwater reel that I'll show in a bit though. And then this one on the right was assisting a photographer. He hired me to be his DP. I just learned that was like 6 months after I learned how to swim. I forgot about that. So I kicked out in the ocean. I was pretty scared, I'll be honest, but I had like scuba gear on just in case, and kicked out in the waves. And he was shooting it really, but I was the camera tech, put that whole thing together. And it was like, just say yes. Sometimes I was like, I'm glad it worked out that way. The second time I worked on an in-water job with him, it did not go well, but also learn when to say no. I didn't even have this on the notes to share, but I will share this. If you feel unsafe, no matter who the client is, you can say no. They wanted surfer shots, kind of like what we did on this one. I don't remember what client that was for, but I wasn't really feeling well, and not just that, but they changed the timing of when we were going to get in the water, and the waves were not ideal. There were shore breaks, and anyone that knows anything about surfing or anything about the ocean, shore breaks are a little bit dangerous. Like you can crash your head on the sand and all that and just get in a washing machine. I didn't feel safe, and I didn't feel 100% to do that, so I said no. They did make fun of me, they did pressure me, and I looked at the producers and I said, I'm not dying for anyone out here. Which has happened on some people's shoots. I don't want to sound, Debbie Downer a little bit, but these things happen. People get injured, things like that. So if something is up and a client is pushing you in a direction you don't feel safe, you can say no. I'm still standing here. I said no. I mentioned that I was gonna show an underwater reel. Where did it go? And oops, I think I lost it. Nope, there it is. So again, theme being just go with it. Like your career may take you in different directions. After Hawaii, like I said, that I wouldn't have done that work if it weren't for saying yes to going to Hawaii and shooting all the work that I thought I didn't want to do, which I ended up loving. All the video work for all these, like for a distilling company or local businesses. It also knocked my ego down a little bit, which was a good thing. I didn't think I had one, but I did. Being in New York, it's unfortunate that it's easy to gain while you're here. But that was one of the best things that ever happened, because I came back with a body of video work, learned how to dive, and was able to be trusted on things like that. Some were lucrative, some are not, but it's pretty cool. I do a lot of interviews too now. I won't really play this, but I'll just show, yes, that's John Waters. So for Out Magazine, once again, Roger Erickson, who's a photographer that shoots a lot of movie poster stuff that I've worked with. I was his assistant, then became his DP, and this was, I think, the first job I did with him as, might have been, no, second or third, as his DP. So we went around and interviewed a lot of people of note for Out Magazine, and going in John Waters' home was definitely a highlight. I'll say that. I love him. But I don't want to be too short on time. So again, if anyone wants to see some of this stuff, let me know and I will share links. Brown passport. So going to not only Hawaii, but that was kind of the segue to be able to go. I had another situation to, or offer to go to Indonesia and have a place to stay for free. I definitely said yes to that. It hurt a little bit financially because there I couldn't work like I could work in Hawaii, at least not for money. But the work that I started doing was this. So this was actually shot in Egypt, but Brown Passport came alive because as artists, I hope, you are really called to do something. You can't just sit around. I can't, I know that. So I was doing a lot of my scuba dive training, but outside of that, I'm looking around like, where are all the black travelers? There are more of them now, but the few that I met, I started talking to, interviewing, like, we're out here. Like I said, we outside, we out here, you know, it's like, great, you too, you made it. Like I heard things like that from folks. You can actually hear someone I'm interviewing say that. Again, I'll provide the link for that. If you do want to see that, let me know. But this is just some behind the scenes here of, oh no, that was in Egypt. This one was in Sun Valley, Idaho. So I shot the National Brotherhood of Skiers. He's one of the founders. He's in his 80s now, still skiing, and another good reason to film these guys, because I don't know how much longer they'll be around, actually. And Ron Denman, he's a member of NABS and was the president at the time that I filmed him. Got the Jackson Park, this is National Brotherhood of Skiers. Up here, the two founders, let me see, this is where I did a portrait of them. I think that was on the I3. Yeah, so this is some behind the scenes. Obviously, I'm not paying attention to who's ever shooting that, you know. But I am not a skier. I did take ski lessons for this. I know, no, I didn't shoot while I was on skis. I sat on the back of a snowmobile. But I didn't get very far with that because Sun Valley, Idaho at the time, which would normally have what they told me would be powder, you can see the mountains are kind of empty in the back. There was March. It was actually the March of COVID, March 2020. And we didn't know about it was going on at the time. But it was a little icy, so I ended up slapping GoPros on some of the skiers and using that footage. Use the camera you got. John Waters taught me that. He said, doesn't matter if it's with your phone. We used 8mm, just shoot whatever. You don't have a camera, you can't shoot anything. Just shoot whatever. Just shoot something. I was like, okay. So lesson learned. Obviously, it's nice if you can have the right equipment. I'm a tech head, but shoot with whatever you've got. So yeah, this is just a portable strobe here and doing stills, and then the video gear is up on the deck. This was while I was shooting in Hawaii, and my friend Brad Starks, who used to live here, is a fellow photographer. Stay friends with your community. They can take you far. And this is kind of a funny one I wanted to share because, yeah, you do have to pay attention. The ocean will take you. So that I had a little, it wasn't just about the gear. I actually was like, I might fall off this cliff in a second. I don't jump out of planes, but. So this is another thing from, most of this is now from Brown Passport. And then I'll close with that. This is Bill Pinkney. He passed away about 1.5 years ago, but I was really fortunate to interview him on his boat in Puerto Rico as part of the Jackson Park Yacht Club, the Black Sailors story. He sailed the globe solo going the Cape Horn route. So he did, there was so he sailed, you know, that's treacherous. He did, like somebody did a documentary on him. He did it in like 1990, I think, 89, 90, during apartheid, because he told me that when he landed in, actually I have that on the video in the show. When he landed in Cape Town, he was like, I just want to get my stuff and get out of there. Like, I'm a black dude. I'm not trying to stay here in apartheid South Africa. And he said, his preconceived notions were challenged because when he got there, they welcomed him with open arms, even though what was going on was not something that he was definitely getting behind. But they welcomed him with open arms, and he stayed longer. you know, the authorities really were happy to see him. He was like, I don't understand this. How can you treat people that look like me as you do here and then you welcome me? It's weird. But I'm very fortunate to have interviewed him, like I said, a year later, right when I got the story out. He called me and he said, no one has what you have on us, like on Black sailors. And he's just like, thank you, thank you. I love this. I love what you have. It's great. And he died like 2 weeks later. I know, of all things, the guy sails around the globe solo, the Cape Horn route, and does all this stuff. And he still said he was sailing that day with us. This was like 2-3 years ago, maybe. And I don't know, so steps. But so not only, this is nothing with photography, not only should we really follow what our calling and what we're supposed to share and show, but something like this, it's like a moment in time. I mean, no one will ever get this again. He's not with us now. I mean, this is just, I feel, like I said, I feel responsible to show this to people. You know, this was in Chiang Mai, Thailand, trying to debunk some of the stereotypes on trans women there. So I won't get into all that because we're short on time, but you could see that. I have a link to that if you would like. Let me know. And I think it is just ending on some other that's also in Thailand, a really fun, ciao for now, picture. So time goes by quick. I want to leave room for questions. What's that? Oh, yeah. Yes, I do. I have some stuff. So I will show, this is the trailer for Brown Passport that I mentioned I might show. Okay, let me hold this open here. I don't know how loud this is going to be. We turned it down on here, right? Okay. So I'm redoing the trailer now based on what I just shared. Not changing the show, but maybe changing the way I present it. But here you go.
Hey, this is Samantha Isom, and I've created a blog called Brown Passport. It's conversations on race, culture, faith, and gender through the framework of travel.
Can I get an amen?
My ankle, you know, I have got issue if my ankle want to sell the land, you know, with a lot of money, you know. But they don't think about the generation, you know. Okay, now if they are selling the land with a lot of money, what they want to do with this money? A lot of people, they are blind with luxury things, right?
Even yesterday I was working and the guy was like, well, are you a male or female? I don't take it personal though, because I mean, obviously I have feminine features and it's not really like, you know, a big deal.
Growing up in white suburban America and the school system, there's a lot that I was told and there's a lot that was really left out.
Did you ever feel that you may have been received or treated differently when scuba diving not with nabs?
Absolutely. He said, all of you died? We're like, yeah. He said, you're all back. I said, if you see this cover, we're all divemasters and instructors. And he started crying. And he said, all different kind of Europeans come and they do things. But nobody ever came like you did and showed that much excellence.
I really don't know what got into me this particular day. I guess I was just tired of the prejudice and the segregation. I can take the guests off. I was sick and tired of it. And I wanted some freedom. And so this particular time, I was riding the Greyhound bus and on my way from Montgomery to Mobile, and we stopped at some hick town, and I decided I was going to ignore the signs, and I went to the signs where the whites were sitting, and I sat down.
So obviously they are full stories outside of this trailer. Yeah. So, and then this stuff is just, how do I get out of? Thank you. Usually there's a thing on the bottom. Yeah, so there's just commercial work out of this mostly, but, which I could show, but, oh, I know what I can on here really quick as far as video goes. I had a request for underwater, so I know what. Okay, one of my dive buddies in Hawaii was all about seeing tiger sharks, and I was not having it. I was like, girl, I just took swim lessons and I just started diving like 3 months ago. What are you talking about? Oh, yeah, you're good. You can take it. I was like, I don't know about tiger sharks though. You know what I mean? I'm not sure. And it's Hawaii, so they're there. I saw some white tips, but I didn't really see, let me see. Oops, I was looking in the wrong thing. Tiger sharks. So let me get to the beginning. Hold on. So I know how to pull this up now. Okay, wait. How do I get out of here? I'm gonna go to vimeo.com. Wasn't planning on showing this one, so that's why I wasn't ready, but I know how to find it. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna get rid of this fear and I'm gonna go dive with some sharks. So I went to Tiger Beach in the Bahamas and shot this. Go. Wow.
Looks to me like you jump out of airplanes.
I don't. My niece wants me to. I'm not. I'll go to I dive, like, what do you call it, the indoor thing?
I did sky. Even I've done skydiving.
Oh, I ain't doing skydiving. I'm not doing that. What if that parachute doesn't open?
All right, do you want to move to questions?
Yes, I do. Yep. I'll put up a page here really quick. Do that.
I needed that. That was fabulous. All right, we're going to do questions. Deborah, would you mind just repeating your questions so we have it for the recording?
I asked, were you in a cage when you shot those sharks?
No. No way, because they were right in my face. The cage diving is like in South Africa or in, what do you call it, on the western coast of Mexico. I can't remember, what, Guadalupe or something. I can't remember now, but those cage dive with great whites. I'm not really interested in that too much, especially as you see sometimes they actually make it inside the cage. So I'm really not interested in that because that's antagonizing the shark. I was on a dive in Jupiter, Florida. It's like Shark Central there. It's very close to where Tiger Beach is in the Bahamas. And that's where, I forgot to mention this, when I was going on one of those I need to get back in the water dives, that was last fall, I think. The first second we jumped in, my friend almost landed on a tiger shark. So that was the first time I saw one knowingly random, like without a dive like this. I was like, oh, this is different. Because in Tiger Beach, you know, you're all sitting on the sand, or maybe you don't know, but you're all sitting in a circle on sand. They brief you. You're wearing all black, so your hands don't look like fish guts and chum and all this, because they're feeding them. It's a whole different ball game when they do that. They act differently, especially the bulls. But they're going for the bait. They're not really after you, but you smell kind of like it around. They just head on a swivel when you see them. It's weird looking at the shark, and I've got my camera like, do they see themselves? I don't know. Like, and but thankfully the camera's huge. It's not a GoPro. It's like, it's a proper film camera, but it looks 10 times the size with this, pardon the way I say, this big ass like bubble housing on the outside of it, right? So but it's also a barrier because their noses are really sensitive. So if it comes up to you like that, think you can bump it on the nose and it'll head in the other direction, which is what the feeders do. They take them and they push them on the nose and they push them away like that. I don't know how you would do that to a great white though, but they do it to tigers all the time. Bulls are really aggressive. I'm not sure they do it with bulls. I saw them have poles and stuff with that. That was nuts. I'm not a real big fan of bull sharks when there's bait in the water. But the crates, like for the great whites, it's a little bit more aggressive from what I've seen. I'm not real interested in that. So no. Anyway, I wasn't in a cage.
Thank you so much for an amazing lecture again, Samantha. So in the beginning, you mentioned like under the water for videos, you have to edit some like different way for colorings.
Yes.
Since like the light is going through. So for each of those colors that gets like taken away while you're shooting
exactly
under the
happens,
water,
yeah.
do you have to like add them like just one by one, or can you just pull it up saturation completely alone?
So oddly enough, the more professional, like the bigger cameras, well, I use a dome too, so I'm not able to put something on the outside of the dome, but I put a red filter on before I go down. The thing is, you have to pick what red filter you're gonna use before you go down, because you can't change it when you're in the water, it's out. So the odd thing is the cheaper cameras, they have a wet lens. You can put it on the outside, you can change it up. Even a GoPro has this. They call it a Flip 4. Mine has like different ones you can change and put it on. So if you're shallow, you're super shallow, you have nothing, you go a little deeper, you put a little bit on, you go deeper, you put a heavier one. But something like that, I'm like, what's the depth? Where am I gonna be at most of the time? And I just put what I guess, like, okay, this is what I'm gonna pick today, that's it. However, if I don't own strobes, I shoot more video underwater than still pictures, except for I did show, well, one was half in, half out, and the other one was fully submersed. I remember the girl, like it's like a portrait of a diver. The LEDs don't really project that far. When you're in the water, the lights don't project as far as they do on land. And in general, LEDs don't anyway. The newer ones do, are getting better. We talked about that in class, I know. But they definitely, you lose that in the water. So if you use strobes, you will bring back all your colors. You don't want to put a red filter on. Right, now I'm using lighting where I have a red filter on, but this sounds counterproductive, but it kind of works. You balance out the red with, I put a cyan filter on my lights. so that I'll have light, but it doesn't put so much red back into the color of whatever I'm shooting that now I have a red picture. Because sometimes if I'm shooting sharks, there's no lights. They're like 30 feet away from me. There is no way my light is going to go that far. It's not happening unless you get like Hollywood, like the cinema. They can do that, but that's a whole team and a different budget, you know, someday. But in the union maybe. But what I'm doing is just having these two on here, or I've had somebody hold the torch for me. But it's that far away. It's not happening. So I would want to use my red filter, and it's just that if I have a situation where I'm going to be able to light something, then I have my cyan filter on top of that. So it's adding light, but not as much of the color back, because I'm already doing that with the red filter. Yeah, so this is like the nerd in me that'll explain that. Yeah. Okay. And it's a whole thing. I could say, if you really want to know, I could send you a link to, somebody did a really good video on it, diving down, and they show you, like, it's not a color wheel, but it's like all the colors kind of on this painted strip, and they're holding it to the camera, and they're going down and telling you how deep they're going, and you can see the colors disappearing. So that was genius, I thought. So I'm happy to share that. Just anybody can email me. I mean, I can, you know, I don't know if my info is somewhere accessible through i3. Yeah. Okay, good. So yeah, do that.
Hi, Samantha.
Hey, now I'm like blinded by the light. I couldn't see you.
Hi.
Hey, now I can see you.
Beautiful lecture. And I just wanted to ask, like, what advice would you give to someone who would, as an emerging photographer who would want to like start learning underwater photography or videography? And what are the things that you should expect when you're beginning that journey?
Underwater specifically, or in general, just in the industry?
Underwater.
Underwater specifically. Learn how to dive. Number one. Hold on one second. I'm not a free diver, but I don't really want to free dive, but I do want to do breath holds. If you were to shoot surfers, I think a breath hold would be useful because you'd be underneath the waves. When we were doing that picture I showed where I'm holding this, like, I got the cheese face and I'm holding this underwater camera, we didn't do anything submersed, and the waves were no bigger than like 1 to 2, maybe 2 feet, maybe. I think it was less than that though, like 1.5. So we didn't have to do an exorbitant amount of duck diving. We weren't getting crushed. Okay, but if you're going out there, I don't really shoot surfers, but I might want to, and I would recommend like doing breath holds. You could practice that in a pool. So I almost got to a minute of holding my breath. You want to get at least 2 minutes to doing that. But that's not required to shoot underwater, but that would be a skill that you could do. But I would say first, up your swim game, but at the same time, I just took those lessons, like, I mean, it's 10 years ago now, but I finally know how to do freestyle swimming now or whatever. Like on top, I could do doggy paddle and not not die in a pool back in the day, right? Like swim on my back. But I'm not, you know, oh, that's what I want to show you a picture of. I'm not Allie Truitt, who I photographed. She won a medal in the Olympics. You don't have to be, just swimming enough, especially if you're wearing fins. So, you know, but scuba diving, I would say, is a must if you're going to shoot underwater. You get the Nat Geo guys, they're using a rebreather. That's the portrait that won in the ComArts. I showed it earlier on in this program. He's wearing a rebreather. It's like there's no bubbles that come out. So you can get really close to wildlife. And if you're filming people, still you don't want to see bubbles, but there's ways around that. Mostly you're going to be in tanks anyway, so it's not a big deal. But if you're shooting wildlife, yeah, those are good. But those, I'm not, again, I don't jump out of planes. I'm probably not going to do a rebreather. Those are kind of dangerous. But yeah, I recommend learning how to dive. And then the only thing is to really get good at it, you need to own your own housing, which sucks because they're very expensive. You can't, that's not an item like anything else on land. You can rent, you could borrow. That's not going to happen with an underwater housing. And so that's an issue. You could start with a point and shoot and at least do something under there. But anyway, yeah, you talk to me about it more later, but let other people ask questions too.
Thank you for your speech and really good talk. And when you mentioned about you worry about your rent before you getting Hawai'i opportunity.
About worrying about my what?
Rent.
Rent, like to.
Yeah.
Oh, Oh, back in the, you're talking about earlier on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I took a lot of jobs.
Yeah, so I was wondering, I'm curious about like how you push through that period and like keep creating.
That's a great question. So especially I would say at the stock market crash, because I was doing very well up until that, like very well in mostly the fashion industry, some commercial, because I did teching for like Mark Abrams too, and there's a couple other people, but mostly it was just the people that I connected with, right? Like that was fashion from the Miami days. That's really what I was riding, but I was busy. So those guys would shoot like 2 weeks a month, every month, you know, and I'd have a couple of them. I was just rocking with the digital tech, but I wanted to shoot. That was more problematic in my shooting than the stock market crash and not having any money. Running out of money was the best thing to happen because it made me shoot more. Because I was like, oh, like I have to do something else, not just digital tech for all these fashion people. And the advertising guys that I was teching for, which did start to pick up right after the stock market crash, they would shoot 1 day a month because they're getting like 50 grand a day or 100 grand with the usage. Well, they were, I don't know about now, but they were getting ridiculous dollars and my day rate did not change. So though I would get, you know, a decent rate and plus rent my gear out per day, I was doing 2 weeks, 3 weeks a month, went down to like 3 days with the new people that I was working with. It was the work I wanted to be doing. I wanted to be shooting, but it forced, I was like, oh my God, I have to go shoot. And a good friend of mine said that. He used to shoot for Canon, like just the worldwide Canon. He used to shoot products. So he was like, hey, you know, I don't even care if you shoot for restaurants. He actually said this right before I went to Hawaii. He goes, I don't care if you shoot for small businesses or restaurants, just stop assisting. At some point, stop assisting and starve a little bit because it's gonna force you to go and shoot anything for pay, whatever it is. And it did. And that's when I went to Hawaii too, and that forced me to shoot video, learn how to edit, because they call them predators, sounds terrible. But it's like a producer, editor, shooter. Yeah, I was told that by like a network. They're like, oh, they want predators. I was like, what? You talking about Harvey Weinstein? Like, what are you saying? I thought he went to jail. You know, like what? But they said, no, like a producer, editor, shooter, like content creator, which actually is, I'm described, I think, in the intro as a content creator. I am, because I have a YouTube channel. So that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't, like they felt I had a free place to stay there, but if I wasn't like, oh, I still got to go back to New York and pay rent. How am I going to do this? That's how that happened. So you just like, okay, you knock on the doors of the local whatever. It was a pizza place or whatever. I was working for a company though. They had this thing that they would do. It was like for Yelp actually. They would do videos as part of the package of people that would pay for their business to be advertised on there. And they did that nationwide. That's why I could do that in Hawaii. It was the same company I did that. Wherever I went to in the United States, I had a job with them. So that was cool. It didn't happen when I went to Indonesia though. I was kind of like, oh, I have to go back and hustle. And I did. I had a bartending job, plus shooting, plus back to assisting, plus, which was good actually because then you learn a lot of the way different people run their show, which is important, I think. Just don't get stuck in it, but it's still good to do that. Just keep going.
Anyone else? Any more questions, comments? All right, huge round of applause.
I just want to say something. I don't know how many people have done it as a career or doing it as a career or thinking about going to. Just keep going. It's really the answer to your question. Please don't stop. I've almost stopped so many times, and that's when the breakthroughs happen. Don't stop. If it's really a calling, you got to keep shooting. That's it. Sorry. Yeah.